you ate and you ate, and you filled up on apples. And what did that give you? Well, it gave you sugar, and because the sugar that was in there caused insulin to go up. Insulin tells your body, hey, don't burn fat, burn sugar, and store all the fat. So you stored fat and you got fat, and that was just a natural thing to do. And then the apples all went away, and there weren't any apples left, and the ones that you didn't eat went rotten, and so now you have nothing for the rest of the year. What are you going to eat? Well, I don't know. Maybe you'll find a gazelle or a zebra or something that you're gonna have to eat. I don't know. But there's only like certain periods of time you're going to get this and then none, and then you're going to get a bunch of something and then none. And that's kind of the way life has always been until now. Now you have a bunch of everything all the time. For heaven's sakes, you can get watermelons in the middle of winter. It's not like that you could ever not have something. You don't have to wait till they come ripe on the tree. Gosh, in the law of Moses, in the Bible, when they planted a fruit tree, the first 3 years they were not allowed to eat the fruit. That was like you can't eat the fruit off the tree. It has to fall to the ground. And the birds can eat it and whatever else can eat it, but you can't have it until after 3 years of that tree bearing fruit. So, life was so different when you had a lot and then none. Whereas today we have a lot and a lot and a lot and a lot and a lot. And we just always have a lot. So we just assume, gosh, 3 squares a day. That's what I gotta have, 3 squares a day. And I'm sorry, life was not always that way. In fact, it's very little bit of time. So we think fasting's an anomaly. Oh my gosh, nobody does that. What, you're going to skip a meal? No, you can't skip a meal. That's bad for you. Our way of looking at it is so totally skewed, just because that's the way we live. That's the world we live in today. So if you look at it from the big picture perspective and you look outside of where we are now, for heaven's sakes, fasting has been part of life since the beginning of time. It's just the way things are. And if you've never fasted, then you're the anomaly in the historical perspective of everything. So the idea of fasting not being safe is, well, first of all, it's not historically accurate. But second of all, let's look at what fasting does. Fasting is when you have an empty stomach. So we have to define it first. Empty stomach. So people who tell you they're fasting and they're drinking water all day long, they're not fasting. They're drinking water all day long. Their stomach's never empty. If people tell you they're doing a fast and they're drinking bone broth or they're eating they have this fasting mimicking kit, which is a kit of food, and you're eating this food during the day, and it's supposed to be just like fasting. But your stomach is not empty, you're not fasting. It does empty out quickly, and then you do have an empty stomach for part of that time. It's not that you never have an empty stomach, but the fact that whenever you're eating, you're not fasting, then that means not fasting. So fasting means empty stomach. What happens when you have an empty stomach? Let me tell you, everything good. Everything that you could possibly want to happen happens when you have an empty stomach. Your body is repaired. Everything is repaired. Your brain is repaired. Your hair follicles are repaired. Your kidneys are repaired. Your liver is repaired. All of the detox and cleanse. People who say, oh, I'm doing a detox. I'm drinking this and taking that and popping all these pills and eating this. That's not detox. Detox is when there's nothing in your stomach. That's the only time you have detox. So getting rid of toxins, that's fasting. Cleaning up your body, that's fasting. Cleanse, that's fasting. Repairing all the damage to your joints because you're using them all the time, that's fasting. So all of this, the good stuff that happens in your body happens while your stomach is empty. So normally we think of like we go overnight, right? In the morning we breakfast, we break the fast. And that's what we do in the morning because we're fasting all night long. Well, if you eat a big dinner, if you have like a pizza and a pint of beer before you go to bed, that's not going to empty out of your stomach for 8 hours. You're going to get to the morning and you're still going to have stuff in your stomach. So you're not breaking the fast when you eat breakfast. Um, if you still have stuff in your stomach from the night before. Plus, your stomach doesn't empty very well when you eat at night anyway. So avoiding eating at night is a good idea. Literally going to bed with an empty stomach is actually really good for you. And that's fasting. And so when you eat breakfast in the morning, you're really breaking the fast. So what about diabetes? And why is that important? Because when you have an empty stomach, you stop making insulin and you become sensitive to insulin. Your cells start using up all of the stored sugar that they have called glycogen. And when they run out, and it takes 40 hours to run out of glycogen entirely. So if you fast for about 3 days, then you have run out of sugar and you're turning to fat burning metabolism, and you turn to something called autophagy. Auto means self, phagy means eating. You're eating yourself. What does that mean? Well, it means all the fat that you've been storing and all the proteins that are all over the place, tau proteins and amyloid plaques. And it's not storage, it's just waste products that are sitting around taking up room. And you have to clean house every once in a while by not eating. And that's fasting, right? So when you have diabetes, you can completely reverse type 2 diabetes just by fasting and nothing else. If you did nothing else and you just said, okay, I'm not going to eat, and you stopped eating, what would happen? Well, your cells, which are full of glycogen, would start using up the glycogen. Boop, 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 boop. And when they've used up the glycogen, they'll say, oh, we don't have any more sugar. Maybe we should make some insulin receptors. Then they'll start making insulin receptors. That makes you insulin sensitive. And that's a very important thing. And people who are insulin sensitive don't have type 2 diabetes. So that all by itself, just fasting, will fix everything. In fact, there was a book written in 1910 called The Fasting Cure. The guy that wrote it's a Pulitzer Prize winning author of The Jungle. His name is Upton Sinclair. And he did a lot of research on this and said he could pretty much cure anything. And in those days, that was even before antibiotics. He said that there were people saying they could cure tuberculosis by fasting. And he wasn't sure about that, but I'm not sure about that either. But so this is before modern medicine. They had, in fact, 1910 is when modern medicine came about. So right about the time he wrote the book, The Fasting Cure, modern medicine came about and said, don't ever fast. Fasting is bad for you. Talk to any doctor in town, they'll tell you fasting is bad for you. It shuts off your adrenal glands. Well, that's because it resets your system. So when your computer isn't working right, you just push the reset button. You turn it off, wait 10 seconds and turn it back on, and voila, everything works again. Well, your body's exactly the same. You stop eating, wait 10 days, and turn it back on again by eating, and everything works again.
That is awesome. And, I said you might say something controversial, and you did. You said you could reverse type 2 diabetes by fasting. So there now I said it twice, but this is pretty amazing. And we have a lot of you who are commenting here in the Q&A talking about your fasting journey. I want to ask you a couple of things. So I had someone say to me on a call recently, they had type 2 diabetes. They're often not hungry in the morning, and so they don't eat in the morning. They eat maybe 2 o'clock is their first meal. Some people call that fasting, but what we found, kind of like you had said, is they're eating late at night and so they're not hungry in the morning. Is that good for you? to not eat in the morning?
That's really interesting. Okay, so there's a book out called The Circadian Code. Sachin Panda wrote it. And he's a brilliant researcher who's done a whole lot on circadian rhythm and what it means. And what I like about him is that he does the deep dive. He doesn't just look on the surface of things. He's like into what is your liver doing and what are all the chemical reactions in your body that are going on when you're fasting and when you're not fasting, in the morning and the evening, and all of this stuff. And he's looked at all this stuff. So the way the body works is in the morning you release cortisol. This is your circadian rhythm with with the adrenal glands. So the adrenal glands release cortisol. Cortisol turns on everything, turns on all the switches all over, including your digestive system. So you're able to digest and detox all the food. Your liver has to detox all the junk that you're eating, right? And that's all got to go through the liver. Well, by 4 to 6 o'clock in the afternoon, that's all shut down. The kitchen is closed. So what do you do now? Well, if you eat at night, you don't digest it properly. You store it in your fat, and so your fat is filled with toxins. So everybody says, "Oh, don't fast; it's bad for you. You're going to release a bunch of toxins." Well, that's only because you've been eating all night long. So eating at night is bad. Eating in the morning is good because that's when all of the machinery is there, all the chemicals, the liver, everything is working to digest and absorb and utilize and detox all of the stuff that you're eating. At night, it's not there. So, yeah, you're still going to have a stomach full in the morning and you're not going to be hungry in the morning. The best way to be hungry in the morning is don't eat at night. So, we always call it a 6-10 reset. You stop eating at 6, go to bed by 10. And that resets your system every single night, and you get to be anabolic. You get anabolic metabolism, which is the repair metabolism, every single night.
Okay, lots of questions coming in now. Okay, let's start with this. Let's say you're fasting. Should you take your supplements or your medications?
Supplements, consider them food. Don't take any supplements while you're fasting. It's funny, this morning, I just had somebody call me this morning. He's fasting and he took 50 milligrams of zinc. And he called and he said, I got a terrible stomach ache. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's terrible. Take some Pepto-Bismol. So yeah, don't take your supplements while you're fasting. And the medications, it depends on what it is. You have to be really careful because while you're fasting, your blood pressure is going to be normal. And if you're taking a blood pressure medication when your blood pressure is normal, you might drop it too low. So you're going to get low blood pressure, which is going to cause dizziness and maybe headaches and orthostatic hypotension, palpitations of your heart. If you have type 2 diabetes and you're taking medications, then that could drop your blood sugar too low. So you may not want to do those while you're fasting. However, some of them you have to take even while you're fasting, and that would be like, let's say you don't have a thyroid gland and you're on thyroid medication. Then when you're fasting, you're still not going to make thyroid while you're fasting, so you still need that medication. So that might be something that you might have to talk to your medical professional about. Hey, while I'm fasting, which ones do I absolutely have to take? And if they say you have to take your cholesterol medication, then they don't know anything.
How about blood pressure?
That's how and blood pressure medication is something that you may have to avoid while you're fasting. Yeah, and diabetes medication, blood pressure medication, and cholesterol medication are 3 that you probably should not take while you're fasting. Yeah.
Okay. If you can post those questions in the Q&A, that would be wonderful. Beverly said, I've been inadvertently fasting many days in the last 3 weeks. Bad case of norovirus and have lost 8 pounds. I don't know whether my A1C will finally budge, but my fasting sugar is normal and my blood pressure has been in the normal range every day. Some of the time I did drink Pedialyte, but much of the time there was nothing in my stomach.
Wow, Beverly. I mean, that's a great testimonial for exactly what I was talking about. It's the empty stomach that heals you. That's what it is.
Yeah. Okay, Judy said I did my second 3-day fast. I lost 5 pounds on the first one, but I drank water. The next one was a dry fast. I lost over 11 pounds. I did get heartburn pretty bad. Can I take some Tums? Also, how many times can I 3-day fast per month? I'm a type 2 diabetic and I am 80 pounds overweight.
Oh, well, yeah, you can do 3-day fast once a week if you want. That would be fine. Yeah, and good work. Good for you. 11 pounds in a weekend. That's pretty cool.
Okay. We have another message here. Let's see. Not that one. KJ said, most of the time my blood glucose level is between 900 to 100 these days, but I'm still experiencing 3 spikes into the 140 range during the day at roughly the same times, and whether I'm eating or fasting doesn't seem to have any bearing or effect on it. The times are roughly late morning after rising, mid-afternoon, and early evening, and they seem to last about 1 to 1.5 hours. Why would this be happening?
Okay, so there's a very complex system that keeps your blood glucose normal. And so 90 to 100 in the morning, that's pretty good. It should be ideally 70 to 90. This is just shifted up a little bit. And it's an indication that your normal levels, your body's thermostat is set a little bit high. And so what's happening is if you start dropping low, then your pancreas will put out your pancreas will put out extra glucagon that tells your liver to make more sugar, more glucose. And so then your glucose levels will go up. So it's a complex system that keeps this equilibrated. And the point is that all of those numbers that you have, even the morning fasting, 90 to 100, is indicative of having your set point is a little bit high. It's kind of like a thermostat. And so that's an indication of insulin resistance. So the way to handle that is to increase your insulin sensitivity by avoiding glucose in any form, sugar, avoiding artificial sweeteners. And if you go and just do phase 1 of the program, that'll generally get you there.
Okay. Okay, Parvin, hello, Parvin, says, is Norvala neuropathy prevention? I've been on it. I take it with dinner.
Yeah, um, it would prevent neuropathy. Yes.
Okay. Christine said, I haven't really fasted yet, but I noticed when I thought I hadn't eaten right or enough, I can get dizzy and my blood pressure even goes really high. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So if you're getting hypoglycemia, that's often because you release more insulin than you need, or you have the foods you're eating are high glycemic index. So if you eat something that's high glycemic index, then it raises blood sugar rapidly, and your pancreas sort of overreacts and makes too much insulin, so your blood sugar goes up fast, but then there's no more glucose to absorb, and it drops fast. And so if that's the case, then you might be getting hypoglycemia, low blood sugar, which can cause all those symptoms too. So the best way to do that is to avoid things that have glucose in them. So you have a very low glycemic index. And phase 1 of the program is a great way to do that. So if you get the diabetes solution kit and start off with phase 1, that should go away completely.
Okay. John said, isn't a dry fast bad for your kidneys?
Yeah, we've heard that several times. We've answered that several times on this program. And what they're talking about is they're saying your kidneys require a lot of water. And it turns out that's not true, that actually, if you look at the actual research, that most people drink too much water. They're diluting out their kidneys so that they can't concentrate urine. So when you do a dry fast, you're training your kidneys to be able to concentrate urine. You're increasing the gradient. There's a salt gradient in the kidneys. And if you drink a lot of water all the time, you have a very narrow salt gradient. If you if you don't drink as much water, you have a wider salt gradient so that it gets more concentrated. So your kidneys have the ability to concentrate urine. So it actually improves kidney function when you do a dry fast.
Okay. And how about exercise? Thomas wants to know, can you do that when you're fasting?
You should exercise when you're fasting. And here's why. Your body wants to start autophagy. And autophagy is it's going to take what it needs and it's going to take it out of whatever's not being used. And if you're not using your muscles, you actually do use muscle for energy. You take the protein out of your muscles and you start using it for energy. So, in order to train your body to use fat and not use the muscles, it's kind of important to exercise while you're fasting.
Okay. Mary said, I just finished a 3-day fast. I didn't take any supplements or medication. I lost 12 pounds and my blood glucose dropped to 62 during the last hour, and I was very lightheaded and weak. Did I fast for too long?
No, 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 that's good. Okay. So what you're doing when your blood sugar goes down to 60 is you're getting into the normal range. And you're training your body to start lowering the thermostat, the set point for sugar. And that requires that you get a little lower sometimes. So yes, you were having a hypoglycemic episode, and that's why you felt it. But normal people do not feel hypoglycemia at 60. You would have to get below 50, like in the 40s or 30s, before you would notice it. And so the fact that you noticed it means your set point is a little high. And so you're going to start improving insulin sensitivity if you keep doing that. And if you were to keep going and go even longer, then it would happen even faster.
Okay. I love this question from Stefan. Instead of a 6:10, can I do a 7:11 and just sleep an hour later in the morning?
Actually, no. And if you want to read the book, The Circadian Code by Sachin Panda, it's pretty, like, they've done a lot of research on this, and people who work shift work or work till 11 o'clock at night, they still don't get anabolic. It needs to be, you need to be in bed by 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And some people, if you ever follow, like Brian Johnson is some body hacker guy that holds the record for sleep for 100 on his Whoop band. He has a 100 sleep for like every day for, I don't know, 2 years or something like that. And so he had to keep moving it back. So he's going to bed at 8:30. His last meal is at 11 o'clock in the morning, in order to get that 100% sleep for that long. When you push it later, you get less deep sleep, and so your sleep is not restful sleep.
All right. Trying to get all these fasting questions in here. Irene says, can I drink coffee when I fast?
That's a good question. So there was a book by, her name escapes me. It's Fast Like a Girl. I think that's the one. And she talks about having a clean fast. And a clean fast is you can drink water and coffee as long as there's nothing in it, no sweeteners, no creamer, anything like that. Because the taste of bitter does not bring out insulin, so you don't have an insulin response. And so she says that's equivalent to water. She shows some studies that indicate that, and I'm okay with that, but and it empties out of your stomach pretty well. I just don't like the stimulation from the caffeine. which tends to increase the cortisol. So I would say it's not ideal, but I've told some of my patients, yeah, fine, it's not going to hurt. In fact, your diabetes will still get better just as fast. The caffeine or coffee or tea is not going to mess up that at all. So as far as the blood sugar and the diabetes is fine.
All right. Okay, what did you say could prevent neuropathy? I think we were talking about Nervala.
Nervala, yeah, yeah. So as far as prevention goes, I think that's a good idea.
You can find that at Barton. Actually, go to bartonnutrition.com. You can use code webinar25. That's one word, webinar25. You'll save 25%. I'll post that as well. Okay, I love this question. Alexander says, much talk about RFK. How about the measles vaccine? And how about vitamin A?
Okay. Wow, that's a big can of worms. We should do like a separate thing on that kind of thing. I think I like the idea of RFK saying, okay, you have to prove that it works before we will allow it to be given out to the population. And so let's start with that. And I agree. I totally agree. Prove it. Show us some real research, because I've seen some of the research on some of the vaccines and it's terrible. And it even says, when you look at a review, I was looking at I did a whole article on the pneumococcal vaccine, and every study done outside of the United States that was not funded by the company shows it doubles your risk of getting pneumococcal disease. Every study done inside the United States, paid for by the drug company, shows that it's probably about a wash, whether you get it or not. But they kind of push it a little. They do something called p-hacking to make it look better than it is. And so the reviewers say, well, these studies weren't as good. And they're all the ones done by the drug companies. So show me some real research that it works, and I'm fine with using vaccines. In fact, I used to have the vaccine clinic in Santa Barbara, the travel clinic, and I did all the Japanese encephalitis and the yellow fever vaccine. I had the stamp. They only allow like one person in town to have that, and I used to do that.
Interesting. Okay. Roy says, occasionally I put a teaspoon of honey in my tea. I find that at about 15 to 20 minutes later, I'm very prone to fall asleep. If I skip the tea and honey, I don't find myself passing out and falling asleep. What's up? Well, is it sleepy time tea?
Maybe it's chamomile tea. Yeah, or lemon balm or something like that. But it could be that the honey in the tea is causing a rapid rise in insulin, and then rapid rise in sugar, glucose, and then the insulin is released, causes a low blood sugar. And so you might be getting lower blood sugar and going, oh, I'm a little sleepy. And that could just be from hypoglycemia.
Brenda said, why do I get leg cramps and my fingers cramp too when I fast and cut back on fluids?
Okay, very good. Thank you. Cramps are very common. There's a lot of electrolyte changes happening while you're fasting. And those electrolytes are what helps your muscles to be able to relax. And that's especially the potassium and magnesium. And so you get contractions, cramps, but they don't relax very easily. Yes, I've had that too. How do you get around that? Well, I don't know. You could take magnesium. I've had people do that. There's something called Calm, which is a powdered magnesium you can put in your water and drink it down. I also have had several people do electrolytes, and be careful of electrolyte solutions because a lot of them have sugar or artificial sweeteners. Avoid those. the pinch of sea salt or the real salt, they have a bit of magnesium, potassium, sodium, and so just putting that in your water sometimes will take care of that.
Okay. Let's see. Sib says, what would you suggest that one should eat or drink after fasting, first meal?
Um, it's really interesting. A lot of the books don't deal with this. Like, what do you eat after you're done fasting? And but there was that one book from Upton Sinclair in 1910. They talked a lot about that because in those days, I guess they ate a lot of meat or something. Because he says they just started off on meat, and he says probably shouldn't start off on meat. Probably should drink milk first. And then later on in the book, he says, well, milk probably isn't the best thing to start off with. So I would say fiber. And it seems to me personally, because I do it a lot, fiber seems to work really well. It keeps me regular. It prevents me from having any kind of issues, stomach issues after fasting, even for long periods. So, what is fiber? Well, beans, peas, lentils, nuts and seeds, fruit, vegetables. They're all high in fiber. So it's not that you can't eat anything. It's that I would wait on the meat and the cheese, milk, and those kinds of things, and just have your first meal be a high fiber meal like beans and brown rice with some vegetables or something like that.
Okay. Barbara says, will taking slow release melatonin interfere with my fast?
Interesting. Okay, melatonin. No, no, I don't think it will interfere with the fast. Melatonin is generally well tolerated, and it's really important. It's important that your body make it. And there is some evidence. I know Joe put out well, me and Joe and I put out an email recently. We were talking about melatonin and how taking melatonin suppresses your body's production of it. But it doesn't mess up the fast as far as I know. I don't think it does. I think melatonin is an important part of it, of the anabolic hormones, because the melatonin is an anabolic hormone.
Okay. Couple questions about sweeteners. First of all, if you have type 2 diabetes, should you be eating anything sweet?
The answer is no. That's it in a nutshell. No, really, you should avoid sweet things because artificial sweeteners are dangerous, especially in type 2 diabetes. Someone told me, well, stevia is not an artificial sweetener, it's a natural sweetener. Yeah, it's a natural sweetener, but it doesn't have any sugar involved with it. And so it still can cause the insulin release without adding any sugar. So you end up with getting more insulin resistance from it. So yeah, even natural things like monk fruit and stevia and all of
Honey,
what?
honey.
Honey. Yeah, honey. Yeah. Agave nectar and coconut sugar and all those. Yeah, they all have the same issues.
So then the next question, Melvin says, is Monster Zero sugar good to drink? So those are Monster energy drinks. And the sugar
Yes.
in the zero is still erythritol, sucralose, and then ACE K, which is acesulfame, I don't know how to say that, potassium.
Yeah. So those artificial sweeteners are going to cause a release of insulin, and they're going to make you more insulin resistant. I would avoid them. Yeah, absolutely avoid that monster drink.
All right. Anonymous says, does fasting help to reset or stabilize the sugar level down to 70 to 90?
Yes, yes, fasting does that very well because while you're fasting, you just don't make insulin hardly at all. And so, without any spikes in insulin, you just get more and more sensitive until your blood sugar is at the perfect 70 to 90 range.
Irene says, I drink decaf coffee, so no caffeine in my system.
Oh, Okay, so let's say decaf coffee with no sweetener or creamer or anything in it. Yeah, okay. I don't, like I said, the research that I don't remember the
Is it
author's name.
Mindy Pell's?
Yeah, Amy Pels. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. She gave that says, yeah, you don't break your fast by black coffee, but I would say decaf. Yeah, that'd be okay.
Okay. Anonymous says, so is Dr. Saunders anti-vax or pro-vax or depends?
It depends. Um, I'm really I really know a lot about vaccines because I had a vaccine clinic for 10 years. So I'm really very aware of them, and I know which ones are good and which ones are not good. So there are some good vaccines, and there are some that are not good vaccines. So, you know, if
A
they're
time and a
good,
place. A
cool.
time and a place.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a common thing, and I think this, well, I'll just ask the question. Parvin said, you mentioned salt. I've been avoiding salt. We should probably do another webinar just on salt again. I think we did this once in the past.
Yeah.
But I feel like there are definitely, a generation of people who were told avoid salt. And then the next generation came and said, no, you need to add salt to everything. And now there are, like 20 different kinds of salt, and we don't know what's the difference. So talk to us about this.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of misconception about salt. So a lot of the issues of salt are that it's supposed to raise your blood pressure if you take in too much salt. And so when research was done, and for example, in Finland, they took out the salt shakers in restaurants and everything, and they put in the fake salt. So, and that is a potassium salt, potassium magnesium combination instead of the sodium salt. And they saw dramatic improvements. Like people got better there. They had less heart attacks. Heart disease got better. Blood pressure went down. People getting off medications. It was like a really remarkable thing. So they attributed that to sodium. So, see, you should eat a low salt diet. But they forgot one thing, and that is they gave them potassium and magnesium, and most people are deficient in potassium and magnesium. And so now you've replaced what was missing, and everything works well. So if you focus on what's not the problem, then it doesn't fix things. So just not getting enough salt, that doesn't deal with the problem at all. The problem is the lack of potassium and magnesium. So magnesium is hard to get. And in some cultures, it's been shown that over half of the population is deficient in magnesium. Potassium is another fairly common deficiency. So getting enough of those, how do you get those? Fresh fruits and vegetables, key. Magnesium comes with anything that grows, nuts, seeds, whole grains. As soon as you process, as soon as you eat white rice or white bread or white anything, you've taken all the magnesium out. So we have no staple foods that are potassium and magnesium. So it's easy to get deficient in those. So if you add those in, if you're getting enough potassium and magnesium, you could get all the salt you want. Your kidneys can handle 40 grams of salt a day. That's 10 times the recommended amount of 4 grams a day. So you could take in a lot of extra sodium if you're getting enough magnesium and potassium, especially potassium. So really managing what's important and taking care of what's not important, and not wasting your time on what's not important. So for example, in the Huberman podcast, I remember watching him. So here's a neurologist at Stanford University, right? And he's going, I start every day by putting salt in my water. And everybody's like, what? He said, I want my nerves to work properly. They need to have enough salt. And people who are deficient in sodium, their blood pressure drops down, their nerves don't work properly, and they don't function well. So you got to have enough.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. Let's see. Anonymous said, can you talk about the best beers to drink? Lots of questions from people. Someone else had asked, can I have coffee with half and half? I just want to mention something. There's a lot of different ways to reverse your type 2, right? So we've talked about fasting. We also have the diabetes solution kit. So if you're wanting to eat food, the diabetes solution kit is a really good option. Um, let's say you're doing the diabetes solution kit, which is what we talk about often here. During phase 1, you are eating less than 20 net grams of carbs per day. So your goal is anything that you're putting in your mouth has to fit into that program. So if you want to drink a Guinness, for example, a 12-ounce Guinness beer has 9 carbs. So that'd be about half of your daily limit if you really want that beer. So it depends on who you ask or what plan you're doing when you're asking about like beer or if you can have half and half in your coffee. Kind of depends. Kind of depends on what you're doing. Any other thoughts on that?
No, that's good. That's exactly right.
Other than
Count.
beer probably isn't great for you, which I don't think anyone will argue. But if you want to drink it, then just count your carbs if you're doing that plan.
Yeah. Yeah. And consider this, every drop of alcohol damages your liver and your brain. So if you don't care about your liver and your brain, alcohol.
They're coming out with more and more research about that. And
Yeah.
lots and lots of people are giving up alcohol, which is kind of fun to see. There's a big movement with the
Yeah.
younger generation, especially, which is neat. Okay, let me see. If you guys can post your questions in the Q&A, that would be awesome. Beverly said most artificial sweeteners are carcinogenic. We have known this since at least 1960. Give them all up now. If you really don't ingest any sweeteners, your taste buds will adjust. Took me about 2 weeks in 1971. I taste sweet in natural foods without added sweeteners of any kind.
I can attest to that. I used to have Skittles all the time. I would just be popping Skittles. I had Skittles in my car, and I'd be driving and eating Skittles. And then I thought, you know what? Candy's not really good for you. I'm gonna get off that. And this is like 20 years ago. It was a long time ago. And so I started raisins. So I had raisins, and I made raisins. After a while, I thought, you know what? I'm just eating sugar all the time, so I'm gonna get off that. So then I started with almonds and those little baby carrots. And you know what? They're sweet. Like I find almonds really sweet and the carrots really sweet. They have a lot of sweetness to them, and I like them. And I don't eat the. My kids always joking me about the almonds and raisins, but I gave up the raisins. I'm just doing the almonds.
Almonds. Yeah, you've been able to eat nuts when you're craving something sweet. That is hard. That's a hard adjustment to make. So I
Or
feel all of your pain.
the baby carrots work for me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Alan said I'm underweight. How can I gain weight on a low carb sugar diet? My wife, I should probably clarify that. Low carb, low sugar diet. My wife says I'm too thin. Please help. We do hear this. A lot of people are looking to gain weight or maintain.
Okay, so before you go into the food to the treatment, find out what the problem is. If you're really thin, there's a reason for that, and look for the reason why. So the first place to start, I think, would be your adrenals. Test your adrenals, and then number two, test your insulin. So the insulin level, C-peptide level, which is a marker for insulin, and then look at the glucose and hemoglobin A1C just so that you can see your insulin resistance index. Because some people just don't make enough insulin, and you can eat and eat and eat and eat on your whatever low carb. But if you're not making enough insulin, then you're not going to be able to put on weight, because without insulin, you can't put on weight. So looking at what the underlying cause is before you start any treatment.
All right, I'm going to try to go through some of these questions over in the chat because the Q&A is done. Let's see. David said, lately I've seen many new infomercials about magnesium supplements this is the next fad. Are these supplements a good idea?
Okay, Back to magnesium. Staple foods. It make dark green vegetables your staple food because everything green is green because of magnesium. And then add in whole grains, nuts, and seeds, anything that grows, beans, peas, lentils. That's where all the magnesium is. So if you have a staple food of, well, I eat beans every day and I eat greens every day, or I eat whole grains, whole rice, brown rice, and whole wheat. If you have that, then you're going to get enough magnesium. If you don't, you're not. And so, yes, most people are deficient in magnesium. So it's a big thing. You need magnesium. And do you have to take a supplement? No, eat good food.
Right. KJ said, I read someplace that blood pressure issues related to sodium indicate a potassium deficiency.
Yes. And that's exactly the point. The problem is not too much sodium. The problem is insufficient potassium. Thank you.
Mm. Okay, Steve said, is fasting prior to prepping for a colonoscopy recommended or not?
Well, yeah, they make you.
So are you saying prepping or fasting before you
before
prep?
prep? Yeah, yeah. It's always good.
Make it a lot easier.
In fact, it's a really good thing that they make you fast before a colonoscopy, before surgery. They make you fast because that puts you into anabolic mode so you can repair and get back to normal faster.
Mm. Okay, Judy said, I've been having blood pressure being high in the morning. It has been 189 over 69. I do intermittent fasting and do the 610. I eat by 6 and bed by 10. Blood pressure goes down in 130 over 55 or so. I have bradycardia and sometimes my blood pressure has been 126. It makes me fear through the night. Pulse 37 to 34 or 44. I take two, it says Listrafil. Would it be lisinopril? No.
Lisinopril.
Yeah, 20 milligrams every morning, but doctor said to take one in the morning and one at night. I did for a while, but couldn't tell any difference. Not sure what's going on. I have told the doctor.
Okay, so you have an issue of an unstable blood pressure, which by itself isn't a problem, but there's a reason for it. And so finding out what the reason, why is it unstable? Is it your autonomic nervous system dysfunction? Are you having an issue with the brain not getting enough oxygen at some point? It seems like you may have an adrenal problem because you said it goes up in the morning into the 180s, but your diastolic stays normal, and that's common with stiffness in your arteries or stress. For example, when the arteries are not compliant. So finding out why are your arteries not compliant? What is wrong? Is it your adrenal glands? Is it a brain problem? Is it an autonomic nervous system problem? Find out what the underlying cause is first, and then deal with that. Then you'll know what to do. It'll be automatic.
Right. KJ had also said the fasting for 10 days I get, but no liquids, no water. That sounds dangerous.
Everything's dangerous. Getting in your car is more dangerous than getting on a plane, and everybody. Yeah, anyway, so um, so I don't think people should fast for 10 days without water. I think they should drink water through the 10 days. That's what I usually do. Yeah, I think the water's fine. I think I kind of a 3-day fast without food or water is kind of where I think the limit is.
Rayanne said I've been doing a 72-hour water fast every month since 11 of 23. And I got my A1C down from 12.1 to 6.4 with my last blood work earlier this month. I'm finally getting blood sugar averages under 120 on a regular basis. Still working on it.
Wow, good work. Yeah, wow, since 2023, so a couple of years. Wow. Okay.
Yes. Jennifer says, I've been fasting and doing one meal a day for about 3 weeks, and I've lost 1 pound per week. I'm exercising more, but looking to lose more weight.
Okay. So if it's just weight, that's a great way to do it. Yeah.
Okay. Bill says, how do I get more K in phase one?
Potassium. How to get more potassium in phase one. Okay, so broccoli, lettuce, celery. You can actually drink a 16 ounces of celery juice has almost no carbs in it at all, and it gives you like 1,200 milligrams of potassium. So yeah, there's good ways to get potassium. Just eat a lot of vegetables, and avocado is perfectly fine in phase one. And each avocado has like 800 milligrams of potassium all by itself. So yeah, you can do that. I think I had avocado every day when I did phase one.
Last question, David says, please, doctor, how is high cortisol and insulin related to high blood pressure?
High cortisol and insulin. Okay, so cortisol is the wake up hormone, and that's the one you get in the morning, and it turns everything on, including your blood pressure. Cortisol causes high blood pressure. It's the stress hormone. That's what it causes constriction of blood vessels, gets the blood flowing into your brain. So that's cortisol. And the other one is insulin. Yeah, insulin works a little differently. Insulin raises blood pressure secondarily, and that is when you have insulin resistance. So I have high insulin causing insulin resistance makes you have less energy production, like in the brain. And then the brain says, hey, I need more energy here, and raises the blood pressure. So your kidneys, your brain, your heart, your liver, your organs will raise the blood pressure up because of not getting enough energy because of insulin resistance.
Okay. All right. Our time is up for today. Thank you, Dr. Saunders. We'll see you next
Welcome.
week. Same time, same place.
Okay.
Bye-bye. All right, everyone, you can find more information at bartonwebinar.com. Use code webinar25, that's one word, to save 25% on